Welcome to Guitars and Gadgets. I'm Tom Seitz. Today I want to talk about the wah pedal, one of my favorite guitar effects. And before we get into the history of it and how a wah pedal works, I'd like to show you how I love to use my Crybaby. To an Alice in Chains tune, I used a backing track from karaokeversion.com. Check it out, man. Man, I love the sound of a Crybaby, but there is a lot of different kinds of wah pedals out on the market today. Let's go back to where the idea of it came from. The idea of a wah pedal actually come from trumpet players. Back in the 20s, these guys would muffle, the end of the horn to get that. And it's all about changing the tone of the instrument. And that's how a wah pedal works. Actually, what it is inside here, you have a tone pod and you have a lever with teeth on it that come down from the pedal. You work this with your foot, and as you push down and pull up, it moves the tone knob, which changes the tone of the guitar. And it's a little more complicated than that. Inside there's resistors and capacitors, and they're made to send certain frequencies of the guitar to ground so you don't hear those frequencies, and that's how it changes the tone by the way you move the tone pot, by moving your foot. And the guys that came up with this, like I said, back in the 20s, they did this, with trumpets was how they were doing this, just by muffling the end of the horn, and but of course, guys, throughout the years, they wanted to try it on guitar. And the guys who invented this was a guy named Del Casher and a guy named Brad Plunkett. These guys worked for Roland Organ. They worked for Thomas Organ Company. And by the way, the very first actual Crybabies were made by Thomas Organ Company. And then Jim Dunlop, which like the one I got is made by Jim Dunlop. This one's from the 80s. And if you look at the front of them, you can see over the years, they've changed the logo style and stuff. And that's kind of how you can determine which era they're from. And they do change a little bit in tone over the years from the original ones that were made. Now, Jimi Hendrix, everybody knows him. He, for using a wah pedal. Back in the 60s, he kind of made that sound really popular, and he actually used a Vox. And there's not a whole lot of difference between a Vox and a Crybaby. Different companies, of course, but they're kind of similar in sound. But nowadays you can get, there's a lot of different wah companies out there now, like Morley. And, Dunlop and Vox, they both have different versions of the Crybabys and the Vox original wahs, they call them. And some of them have tone control knobs so that you can change. It's all in your desire of what you're looking for as far as tone goes. It's not all just about, hitting it back and forth and, and going wah, wah, wah. A lot of guys use these. And they'll play a whole song just with it set in a certain position because it gives them a tone that they can get with that pedal that they can't get out of their amplifier without it. So in like the song I just demonstrated with the Alice in Chains solo there, that you don't just work the wah back and forth while you're playing it. There's certain spots in that solo that gives you a certain tone, and you know, and that's how I've learned to work it for that solo. That's the way I like to play it, you know. And like I said, it's just a matter of taste and how everybody likes the sounds they're getting. So if you've never used a wah pedal, which I'm sure you probably have if you're a guitar player, you know, you just got to experiment with what you want to get from one. And you may be a guitar player that don't even like the sound of a wah pedal. It's all personal taste. I love my Crybaby. I've been using a Crybaby for probably about 30 years. So, you know, it's one of my favorite guitar effects. And once again, I ask you to please subscribe to my channel if you like, you know, what you saw and heard here. And I hope the information I gave you was useful, and I hope you enjoyed the video. We'll see you next time, man.